Everywhere you look, the signs and symbols of Welshness sit comfortably in an Argentine setting, tokens of a shared heritage. But for the first settlers, there was one aspect of their culture that they were determined not to dilute or compromise. And this should provide a clue. This harmonium still plays a pretty decent hymn tune, not bad considering it arrived here a century and a half ago with the Welsh pioneers.
Mae'n anodd credu
Ti ddim yn
bod
credu?
yr offeryn yma, a oedd hwn ar fwrdd a mimosa, yn dod yma i Patagonia a 1865. Organ pwy yw hi yn wreiddiol?
Robert Thomas o Fangor yn gwreiddiol yn Gogledd Gymru.
A wedyn, oedd Robert Thomas i dod yma?
Wedi dod i Trelew, efo Mary Thomas ar y long, Mimosa. A wedyn Mary Thomas sydd wedi cadw y ffarm hier.
I chi'n amlwg yn edrych ar ôl yr offeryn, pam bod e mor bwysig i chi?
Cerddoriaeth heddiw pwysig i'r bobl Cymraeg i Celtaidd hefyd. A gyda'r Beibl, siŵr fod yn cadw bobl Cymraeg mwy agos. Teuluoedd yn y capel yn y ffermwyd wrth gwrs bob dydd Sul a dydd Sadwrn siŵr.
Communal worship was a priority, even if it took place in a wooden hut. Such was the importance to the settlers of their non-conformist religion. Later, as they mastered their harsh environment, they built many more chapels. Some of those chapels are now dwarfed by urban sprawl. Others look much as they must have done when they were built. Relics of Victorian Wales transplanted to an alien landscape.
We should never lose sight of the fact that for those early Welsh settlers, their faith, their non-conformist values were absolutely essential. That is what sustained them and helped them to get through all the trials and the difficulties that they suffered. And these chapels, however small and however modest they appear, were actually symbols of strength.
This is Bethel Chapel in Trevelyan in the Andes. The first meeting house the Welsh built here was a simple log cabin. Step inside, and you could be in a chapel in rural Wales. Except that half the service is in Spanish. The display of allegiance healed the rift between the Welsh and the Argentines, but the Welsh were not ready to integrate. 40 years earlier, the colony had been founded to prevent the culture and language being overwhelmed by those of England, and to ensure that it was handed on to the generations to come. Now, with a new culture threatening to overwhelm them, the colony remained faithful to that original vision. They built a school, one that has a fair claim to be the first Welsh medium secondary school in the world. Wales would wait another 50 years.
When the government opened...
Some of Lyned Gonzalez's family members were pupils here in the early days.
The school received pupils from all Patagonia at the beginning, from the south and from the west, and in Gaiman itself, children who were not of Welsh extraction attended the school.
But the Argentine government saw no place for Welsh in education. State schools fostered patriotism and national unity under one language, Spanish. They offered something the Welsh school could not: official certificates and entry to university, so inevitably they drew pupils away.
How did the policy of the central government in Buenos Aires affect the status and the teaching of Welsh?
Well, the effect of that was that Welsh was taught at the Band of Hope and at the chapels and at the Sunday school, really. The Sunday school did a tremendous job to keep alive the Welsh language.
In the early years of the 20th century, the Welsh community was no longer in secure isolation. The incomers were routinely in contact with people outside their own community. One day, the owned irrigation company in the 1940s was another blow. And the Eisteddfod, for so long the centrepiece of the Welsh cultural calendar in Patagonia, came to an end in the early 1950s. The Welsh became second-class citizens. Children were mocked in school as pan i manteca, or bread and butter Welsh. For some, it became a badge of shame. Many families in the Chubut Valley have thoroughly Welsh names, but they're of a generation that was lost to the language.
Me llamo Dirywiad Finlay Davis. Mis padres eran galeses, sí. Mi madre y mi padre, sí. Sí. Nain era Rachel Finch y Tait David Davis. Sí.
But his parents decided not to pass on the language.
Cuando yo era chico no se hablaba galés acá. Habían vecinos que eran de otras nacionalidades, así que, bueno, andaban de visita o viéndose en el trabajo, así que nosotros el galés no se hablaba. A veces he pasado vergüenza por no saber. Estoy muy orgulloso de ser descendiente de los galeses, sí. 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 Me enseñaron mucho.
Michael D. Jones had dreamt of creating a safe haven for Welsh culture. By the 1950s, the mission the Founding Fathers had sacrificed so much to achieve appeared doomed to failure. The survival of the language was at the very heart of that vision. By turning their backs on the language, it seemed a new generation of Welsh Patagonians were also rejecting the very identity that their ancestors had fought so hard to protect. Some films made by the BBC in the early 1960s strike a rather sad note.
Where some of the old leaders lie buried, the pampas grass comes creeping back. Today, about 5,000 people of Welsh descent live in Patagonia. Slowly, they merge with the rest of the Argentine. Their language is dying. But the Welsh opened up.
In many ways, is the value of Welshness in Patagonia today. I'm talking about commercial value, and there's a strong royal flavour to that commercial activity. All of this is held together by this notion of a traditional Welsh tea, a kind of chapel tea, if you like, though it's much more sumptuous than the chapel teas I remember as a boy. And all of this is underlined by the fact that the family running this place admit very happily that they have little or no connection with Wales or Welshness. They are just running a very successful business.
And that's the thing. Welshness does sell, and things that make money are very interesting to politicians and business people alike. The Eisteddfod, revived in 1965 as a bilingual event, is now used to sell the area to tourists. And the provincial government has helped to pay for renovations to the Welsh chapels and markets them as historic visitor attractions. If I had any doubt about the place of Wales in modern Patagonia, well, that doubt vanished when I ran into a parade celebrating the foundation of the town of Trevelyan. It's revealing because it shows you how the province sees itself. The indigenous Indians are represented, as are the Hispanic peoples and the Arab immigrants too. But pride of place goes to the Welsh contingent for their crucial role as founders of the settlement back in the 1880s. The change in the status of Welsh since the 1960s is quite marked. In 2006, exactly a century after the first Welsh language school opened, the community proudly opened a new bilingual primary school. One of the teachers there is Catrin Morris.
Gair y dydd heddiw ydy Wladfa. Pwy sy'n gallu meddwl am frawddeg yn defnyddio Wladfa? Ernestine?
Planedau aeth Cymru I sefydlu Wladfa Patagonia.
We've come a very long way. We've come a very long way. There is a renaissance of interest in the Welsh language, the Welsh culture, and the Welsh people.
It's notable that many of the children here have no Welsh at home and no Welsh ancestry. More than that, only the Spanish part of their education is free. Their parents have to stump up extra for the Welsh half, and it seems they're perfectly happy to do so.
We offer an education that nobody else here in Trelawn offers at the moment. We offer an education that is based on family values and values based on respect. And we offer a bilingual education which is proven to give great advantages.
At the cemetery where many of the founding fathers were laid to rest, you do wonder what they would make of Patagonia today. Would they recoil at the sight of the colony they built becoming a tourist commodity in the global marketplace? Or would they be heartened that the Welsh identity is being constructed and claimed in new ways? The Founding Fathers had set out to build a new Wales, marked above all by cultural purity. That vision fell short in many ways, but it is remarkable that 150 years later, their descendants are still fighting for the language and culture that they came to protect.
I remember the funeral in the 60s, and the preacher said, I hear another nail in the coffin of the Welsh language. We are speaking of the 60s, and we still speak Welsh here.
People from outside come in and see it as something interesting. As long as we've got young people in the classes, I'm totally convinced that the thing is going to grow and grow.
Dyna ni, da ni yma. Y gweithio pawb a phobeth, da ni yma o hyd.